Hey everyone, it's been a while since you've seen me. And since I've talked to you, and I apologize for that. After the season, I just need a little bit of detox. And admittedly, I took a lot longer than I usually do. And you might say, hey Greg, that's bad for your channel to just go 6 months with nothing. And I would agree with you. But the thing is I do this for free. Other podcasts and stuff, they make a living off of this. I do it for free. I do it really for like the 10 or 15 of you that hit me up on Twitter that ask for the videos, that comment on the videos. That's why I still do it. It's fun to me, don't get me wrong. I don't want to stop, but I feel like I have like a loyal group of friends. Some of you that I don't even really actually know, other than through social media and YouTube and stuff. But you make it fun for me. So I appreciate the engagement and the interactions and whatnot. So thank you. And I'm sorry that it took me so long to get back to you guys. Arizona fans, if you're tuning into this video, I promise I will talk about the Cardinals. It's going to be in a little bit, though, because it's been a while since I've recorded anything for my channel, and I need to rehash what happened to the Bills throughout the offseason. We're going to do it, try to keep it brief, okay? Because it started back in January when the Bills got the game they wanted. The game they asked for. The game we were all dying for. Patrick Mahomes, his first career road playoff game. We got it. It's in Buffalo. And the exact same thing happens. He shuts the door on the Bills season, wins, because of course he does, because he's Patrick Mahomes. And for the third time in like 4 years, or however many years it is, the Bills season ends, courtesy of the Kansas City Chiefs. Super frustrating. I'm not going to rehash too much of that. But what I am going to say is that I would have rather been the Bills. Like right at the 2-minute warning, I would have rather been the Bills. They're down by 3. They have the ball. They're driving. They're in Kansas City territory. And then they completely abandon this like clock management strategy and throw to the end zone. Granted, it was there. It was there to Shakir. The throw came up just a few feet in front of him because Dawkins got pushed into Allen and it kind of affected the throw a little bit. The Bills could have had a touchdown on that play, for sure, and taken the lead there with less than 2 minutes to go. But after they had spent almost 6 minutes, I think, they got the ball back with like, what, 7 or 8 minutes left? They'd spent 6 minutes milking the clock, looking like they just want to run this thing out, maybe score near the end of the game and give the ball back to the Chiefs, if at all, with a little time left. And we know what they can do with just a little bit of time. We've seen that before. We're not going to talk about that. But it's still not a bad strategy. I'd like to think that the Bills would have been much more prepared for it this time than they were 3 seasons ago. But they come out throwing out of the 2-minute warning. They throw to the end zone. They take a shot. It's a shot play. If I was the Chiefs, I'd have been like, oh my God, thank you. And especially now that it's incomplete, because now you have to try to get the first down. They can't do it. And you trot Tyler Bass out there. And the second Tyler Bass walked onto the field, it felt over. That felt like the kiss of death right there. You're going to just try to tie the game against Patrick Mahomes with less than 2 minutes to go and just give him the ball back? He's tied the game with you in 13 seconds. Here I am reliving it again. And you're just going to give him the ball back with like a minute and a half? That's nothing to him. Bass misses a field goal. Do I expect him to make it? Yes, of course. But it felt over already anyway. Don't tell me it didn't. Because it did. Just frustrating. Then it felt even more over when he missed it. And then it was over when the Chiefs got that first down. Just like that, season ends. You can tell I'm worked up. Just worked. This is why I didn't make the video. I would have been much, much more irrational in the days following the game. Speaking of over, this era of the Bills is over. That era. And I don't mean like, oh, they're going to be bad now. I don't mean that at all. I just mean like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White, Mitch Morse, Stephon Diggs. They're all gone. All these players that we've grown to love over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years in some cases, they're gone. And I understand it. The results of running that back again might have been pretty predictable. After the 13 seconds game, you thought, maybe months after the 13 seconds game, you think, wow, they are awesome. What an awesome Bills team that was. They just got beat. They just got beat. Whatever you want to blame it on, that's on you. I'm not doing it. But they got beat. But they were awesome. They were so good. So, yeah, let's bring that team back and try it again. Then that team loses to the Bengals. Then that team comes back again and loses to the Chiefs again. So, yeah, these guys are getting a little bit longer in the tooth. They're getting towards the end of their NFL careers. You know, all of them except Micah Hyde have found other work. You know, but I get why the Bills strapped up against the cap a little bit, just decided to do a little rebuilding, a little retooling, or whatever word you want to use for it. That's what they had to do. They were really left with no other choice. I wonder what the Bills think about their team really behind closed doors. They would never really tell you in the media, and they're not required to. They don't have to tell you the truth. But I think behind closed doors, they might have an opinion of their team, and I'm guessing that it would be, hey, this worked for the Chiefs when they kind of stripped it down a little bit, but they kept the important pieces in play. That would be, you know, Josh Allen, of course, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and the most important piece in play, and they just kind of tried to rebuild up around that. Just be like, hey, this guy's awesome. Let's just assume he's going to continue to be, and we'll just try to continue to build it back up around him. It worked for the Chiefs. It could work for the Bills. Chiefs have won that way. The Bills have won regular season games, but it hasn't translated to January success yet, at least. The number one guy you have to talk about out of that group, by the way, is obviously Diggs. And here's what I'll say about Diggs, okay? I am not the fan that is going to pretend like he wasn't good and that I never liked him. You might be, and you're probably lying to yourself, okay? Because I've seen no shortage of 5 million Alan Diggs lawn signs over the years. The presidential Alan Diggs things, or the Diggs jerseys, or the Diggs advertisements, or the whatever. The Diggs little people even. You love him, okay? If you don't like him now, you think he's selfish, an egomaniac, diva even, whatever. Okay, that's on you. I will not show ill will towards the guy. Here's why. He's the best receiver, I think, in franchise history over a 4-year span. He was integral to the development of Josh Allen into the top 3 NFL quarterback that he is today. He is a highly competitive person. Not to say that other guys on the team aren't, but he wears it a little bit differently. Just like he wears different clothes. I just had to throw it in there. That's a little jab, and that's unnecessary, to be honest with you, okay? I just did that because it was funny. I really, again, feel no ill will towards the guy. I think he's awesome. And I hope he comes back one day to lead the charge or something like that. Like, it would be awesome. Because I will remember him very, very fondly. Some of you will remember the drop against Kansas City and the pouting or something like that. The pouting against Cincinnati in the playoff game the year before. Okay? But he found himself in a position to do something about it, to remove himself from the situation. The fans are always going to be loyal. And I'm not saying that's stupid. That's honorable. You're going to be loyal to the team. I understand that. He is the player for the team. He is just contracted to the team. He feels no, like, innate connection to the team, to the community necessarily. He doesn't have to. He found himself in a position where he's like, hey, you don't want me to be the focal point of the offense anymore, clearly. And the Bills, that's obvious. They have to agree to that because it was obvious over the last 8 games of the season with Joe Brady. He wasn't the focal point of the offense anymore. They're like, I just want to go play somewhere else. That GQ interview just came out this past week where he was like, I needed to shake things up. I get it. He didn't speak negatively about the city like Willis McGahee did, and we all hated him for it. And guys like, even more recently, like Jonnu Smith, who wasn't even play here, and he hates it. And Jordan Matthews said there was nothing to do here. Like, we hated guys like that because they denigrated the city. Diggs did none of that. Okay? He might harbor those feelings inside of him, but he's not speaking it out loud. He had a very nice post about the city and Buffalo and whatnot upon his trade to Houston. And I think the Bills did good to get a second-round pick for him. Considering they traded the first-round pick for him 4 years ago, and then they got a second-round pick for him back, that works for me. 4 years later, after using what will probably be the 4 best years of his career. That works for me. I'm here for that. That's my Diggs spiel. Okay? That's it. What do they do to replace him? Let's talk about that. Let's move on. He's moved on. Let's move on. What do they do to replace him? I think we went into the draft knowing that the Bills were likely going to draft a receiver with their first pick. That's what they did. They traded back a few times. By the way, I have no issue trading back with Kansas City. Okay, if you're not going to take Xavier Worthy, which the Bills clearly weren't going to do, because if they wanted to, they would have just taken Xavier Worthy. And the Chiefs are calling teams behind you. They're calling you like, hey, we're going to help somebody. We're going to trade with somebody to get this guy. It might as well be you. They might as well help you. If your beef is they didn't get enough from the Chiefs, that's a different discussion. That I might listen to. But I don't have an issue trading with them, trading picks with them, or gifting them Xavier Worthy. Something like that. If that's how you want to look at it. I don't. The Bills could have traded back with somebody else. The Chiefs could have traded up to the pick right behind them and got Xavier Worthy because I know the Bills weren't going to take him. Or they just would have. Anyway, they end up with Keon Coleman, who, if you asked me pre-draft, I would have said he was probably one of my least favorite guys of like the first-round bunch. The only reason being because he doesn't separate. My favorite thing about receivers is separation. And he hasn't really demonstrated an ability to do that, at least throughout college. Doesn't mean he can't work it into his game or the Bills can't scheme it up. But he's been more of a contested catch, I will fight you for this ball and I will win type of guy. And that is something the Bills have certainly lacked. You know, even back to going back to the playoff game against Kansas City, the Bills were using Trent Sherfield because Gabe Davis was out. The Bills were using Trent Sherfield at wide receiver 2, really. And he had 2 big plays that he could have came down with that might have changed the game a little bit, and he missed them both. So they might have been like, we need a guy who is going to make those plays. And Keon Coleman could be that guy. I think a lot of fans wanted us to get up into the Malik Neighbors and Romadunze type of territory. And the Bills, at least after the draft, made it seem like they were just not going to do that. That was just never really an option for them. They weren't going to give up the assets. They really need to use the picks to bring in guys, to just bring in more players and increase the odds that one of those players is going to be a big contributor on a rookie contract. But they get Coleman. They sign Curtis Samuel, and they sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Matt Collins. Those are the 3 guys they get in free agency. Scantling I wasn't too thrilled about just because of the trust factor. You haven't demonstrated an ability to have trustworthy hands. But maybe he only has one role in the Bills offense, and that is just field stretcher. You're the separator. We're going to scheme guys in the intermediate and underneath, and you are going to be the reason why, because you are going to take the safety off of the seam, you know, off of the Dalton Kincaids of the world. And Dalton Kincaid might be the Bills' leading receiver next year. I think you wouldn't be too foolish to think that. Joe Brady showed that, I guess it was a little bit maybe with Ken Dorsey towards the end of his, you know, however many games he had. But Brady used him a little bit differently than Dorsey did. With Dorsey, it felt boring. It felt like little flat routes and just quick drags and stuff, like catch and then try to turn upfield. But like the depth of target was super low. And I think with Brady, that might be a little bit different. They could maybe use him more, you know, get a little bit more creative with his routes. And I know that he's talented enough to do that. Anyway, sorry, I didn't want to skip over the receivers. We talked about Scantling. Hollins might play a little bit. He is, I think, obviously you want Keon Coleman to become better than what Matt Collins has been throughout his career. But it seemed like he was going to be a special teams contributor. But now it seems like he might actually play a little bit. The Bills do seem to like him a lot. But he's just a big body. He can run a little bit, and he can make some contested catches. I just think that's a known commodity. You know what you're getting with him. It's just assume he would explode into like a 1,000-yard receiver or something is not realistic. Curtis Samuel's the most interesting to me because he had the best year of his career with Joe Brady in Carolina. And granted, that's a few years ago now. It's probably silly to think that he can just turn the clock back and become receiver he was like at age 26 or whatever it was. I don't know the number off. I'm just guessing off the top of my head what it was with Joe Brady in Carolina. But I think he's versatile. So he can separate a little bit. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. He can play out of the backfield. The Bills tried that a bunch with Diggs. I don't know about a bunch, but they tried it with Diggs last year, lining up Diggs next to Allen in the shotgun. You can do that with Samuel, and he's much more viable threat than Diggs would be in that case. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to use him. I still think Kincaid's going to be the Bills' leading receiver, probably in receptions and yards, but I'm eager to see what they have drawn up for Curtis Samuel. That's pretty much it on the pass catchers. In the backfield, they drafted Ray Davis. We'll talk about the defense in a sec. They drafted Ray Davis. We have seen that they have this more of a commitment to running the football with Cook, with Ty Johnson throughout, Joe Brady's first 8 games as coordinator. And I think that adding Ray Davis is, another step towards that. I'm not saying that the Bills are going to get vanilla or boring with the offense necessarily. I'm also not crowning Joe Brady the next great offensive coordinator, the next Bobby Sloak, the next Ben Johnson or anything like that. I want to see it. I'm eager to see it, because how couldn't you be? He had a whole offseason of preparation to install what he feels is best for the things that he has. He wanted Curtis Samuel. They went out and got Ray Davis for him. So, now these tools are at your disposal. Let's see how you do it. Switching the other side of the ball, Cole Bishop was a second-round pick that the Bills, I'm sure, want to play sooner than later. He missed most of training camp, most of the summer with a shoulder injury. So he's not going to start, but I assume he's going to play at some point throughout the season. It's going to be Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin to start the year, but you don't use a high pick on Bishop without plans for him. So I'm sure the Bills have a plan in mind to use him. I'm certain of it. They have Mike Edwards back there as well. So that's, it was a group that throughout the summer I feel like was kind of light because they sustained a lot of injuries. Edwards had an injury that kept them out multiple weeks. So did Bishop, of course. And now that they're back, I think it's kind of a strength, especially with Cam Lewis, who's been in the system for years. I'd really like adding Dwayne Carter to the mix, to the defensive line rotation mix. You are counting, I feel like, on a lot from, at least in terms of pass rush, you're counting on a lot from Von Miller. You're hoping that he is going to turn into the guy that he was, and the odds might be against that given the injury history and his age. But hopefully you're counting on that, and you're counting on Rousseau maybe taking a step forward from a 6-sack guy to maybe hopefully a 10-sack guy. And we just haven't seen that yet. But, this is just fingers crossed. I don't know if that's necessarily the best strategy. Just hope that these guys take the next step, that these guys that you've been around for years are just going to magically become better. Magically is probably a stupid word to use for that, but I think you know what I mean. A couple late-round picks for the Bills. Cedric Van Pran-Granger. Sorry, I didn't address him on the offensive line. But I think he could be a player at some point. Good program at Georgia. Daquan Hardy, I was surprised, the cornerback from Penn State. Surprised that he was released. I thought he was doing a pretty good job in kick return. And even in preseason at cornerback, he does land on the practice squad. But that was just a little surprising to me because the Bills usually tend to have a love affair with corners, especially late-round corners. They turn them into players all the time. Of course, you have Christian Benford, who's there right now. You got Dane Jackson, who cashed in with Carolina. Even Taron Johnson, to some extent, he was a 4th-round pick. It's a later-round pick, a day 3 pick that you're getting a real contributor out of. So maybe they have plans for Hardy there, too. I was just caught a little bit by surprise by his release. But fortunately, they were able to get him back on the practice squad. And now they'll at least have the chance. He wasn't claimed, so they'll at least have the chance to bring him up to the active roster if somebody tries to sign him. Anyway, I want to talk about the Week 1 opponent, of course, as well. That is the Arizona Cardinals. I think if you're looking at the schedule of games that you have to play this year, you are talking about, Kansas City and Cincinnati and the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and Miami, your division rivals, of course. You probably want a game like Arizona at home. They're coming off of back-to-back 4-13 seasons. Granted, that's with 2 different head coaches. That's with injuries to Kyler Murray and such. I think Arizona's maybe a little bit better. I think their win total at Vegas is maybe around 7. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's right around 7, though. And that feels right. But, I see the NFL talent on their team. I really love Marvin Harrison Jr., of course. This just can't miss prospect to me. There's just no way he's a bust. He's way too talented. I even like drafting Paris Johnson. I think offensive line has been an issue for them in years past. or has definitely been an issue for them in years past. And they bring in Paris Johnson to play left tackle. They signed Jonah Williams off Cincinnati to play right tackle. So hopefully that shores up their offensive line. Hopefully for them, it shores up their offensive line. Not a huge fan of James Conner at this stage of his career, but I did like Trey Benson, the addition of Trey Benson. I think that's good. Like, I see the NFL talent on their team. Like, sometimes you run into a team where, like, I guess Carolina would be the current example. Like, where are all the pro players? Like, to go to a different sport, like the Chicago White Sox, if you follow baseball, historically bad. They just don't have pro players on their team. And the pro players that they do have are just old guys that are totally washed. So I don't see that with the Arizona Cardinals. I see a veteran quarterback surrounded by some pretty good young talent and some veterans. Am I ready to say they're going to put it all together this year? No. But I don't think they can be taken lightly. I just don't really like Kyler Murray, and that will probably come off wrong. But I just think Kyler Murray is the type of quarterback where you just need this extremely, extremely ideal set of circumstances for him to succeed. You can win with him. You can get to the playoffs. They've done it. But he needs this extremely ideal set of circumstances to get you to the next level, to win in January, to get you to the Super Bowl. It just seems he relies too much like on like fluke plays and luck and running around and Hail Marys. And I know it was only one game, okay? I'm just not his biggest fan. As a fantasy player, probably going to be great because he runs well. He has weapons in the passing game. He'll probably be awesome as a fantasy quarterback. But those are not the same thing. That doesn't mean he's going to win the Arizona Cardinals games. I'm going to pick the Bills to win the game on Sunday. These are two teams that I need to see it from both of them, just kind of in different regards. Like Arizona, you're young. I need to see you. You're young with a veteran quarterback. I guess that's sort of the Bills in a way, right? You're young with a veteran quarterback. Let's see you put it all together with a younger head coach as well in his second year. Let's see the growth. Let's see the development. The Bills, they have some youth there, of course, but it's more of like you have this already established superstar quarterback, established head coach, established just group, like overall group, and you need to show that you're not going to be a disappointment, that losing these core 5 or 6 players or however many it was that you lost over the past couple of years that have been contributors for you in the past isn't going to just bog you down completely and completely derail your season, because you should be in the mix for the playoffs again. So I'm going to pick the Bills. I'm going to pick the Bills to beat the Cardinals. I know the spread is only 6. The Bills love to cover, though. So I'm going to say 27-14 Bills on Sunday. Guys, I'll see you at the home opener. Enjoy your weekend. As always, above all else, go Bills.